In a universe where alliances shift like the stars, betrayal can be the deadliest weapon of all. Earth, once a beacon of progress and unity, found itself in a war it never saw coming. The Vorkhans, an alien race that had once stood side by side with humanity, launched an attack unlike any other, not on Earth's military or defense systems, but on its most sacred places, its hospitals. The places where the sick and wounded were meant to be healed, not destroyed. But why? What could possibly drive the Vorkhans to such a ruthless act? As Captain Elara Steele and her crew race to uncover the truth, they come face to face with an unsettling reality. Humanity had betrayed the Vorkhans first. In their desperation for survival, Earth had seized a miraculous resource from the Vorkhans, one that could heal wounds and regenerate life itself without understanding the true cost. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a death sentence for the Vorkhans. Now, as the war escalates, Elara's team is torn between defending Earth and finding a way to prevent total annihilation. The truth is undeniable. The Vorkhans' fury is not just the result of an attack, it's a fight for their very survival. The clock is ticking, and the stakes are higher than ever. As Earth's fleet closes in on the Vorkhan homeworld, Elara intercepts a chilling transmission from their commander. The Vorkhans know everything. They've learned of the resource Earth stole, the alliance broken, and the lives lost in the wake of humanity's ambition. The Vorkhan commander's voice is cold, filled with raw rage. You destroyed our world. You took what was ours. And now, you will pay the price. There is no mercy for traitors. With that, a massive Vorkhan ship emerges from the shadows of space, its weapons already locked on Earth's cities. The countdown begins. Elara faces an impossible choice: retaliate with all their might, or risk everything on a final attempt at peace. The fate of both civilizations now lies in Elara's hands. In a universe where trust is fragile and power is absolute, will peace ever be possible, or is war the only answer left? The night was still, like the calm before a storm. The moon hung low in the sky, casting long, ghostly shadows across the world below. From the bustling streets of New York to the quiet corridors of Tokyo's finest hospitals, the hum of life continued uninterrupted, as if nothing could tear it apart. Suddenly, the silence was shattered. A deafening roar echoed through the air, like thunder rending the heavens. The ground trembled beneath the feet of unsuspecting civilians. Without warning, massive explosions erupted from the sky. Attention all personnel, emergency protocol is in effect. Evacuate immediately. Hospital systems are under attack. This is not a drill. Above, in the heavens where the stars seem so distant, unseen forces hovered. A fleet of shadowy ships, as dark as the void of space itself, unleashed their fury. Without mercy or hesitation, they sent down bombs deadly, precise, unstoppable into Earth's most vulnerable sanctuaries. The hospitals, the beating heart of humanity's care and survival, were turned into nothing but smoldering ruins. In an instant, places of healing became graves. The cities New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, once shining beacons of civilization, were now reduced to charred remnants, like forgotten memories swallowed by the void. It was a massacre in plain sight, and yet, there was no warning, no explanation. We've lost contact with several of our key medical facilities. The hospitals, they've been completely wiped out. We can't just let this slide. It's time for payback. Captain Elara Steele's voice echoed through the command room. Her words hung in the air, heavy with finality. A ripple of tension swept through the room. Her eyes, cold and unwavering, locked onto the team. She had no time for mourning. Her mission was clear now: retaliation, and swift. Elara Steele was no stranger to the darkness of war, nor to the weight of command. But this was different. The attack wasn't just a military strike. It was a statement, an unspeakable act of cruelty. And it was one that would set the course for everything that followed. The walls of the command center were dimly lit, shadows stretching long across the sleek surfaces. The air was thick with a sense of urgency. Elara Steele stood at the head of a long, polished table, her eyes scanning the holographic map of Earth and the far reaches of space. Every corner of the room felt suffocating, as if the weight of the entire world pressed against their shoulders. Around her, the military officers sat in silence, their faces as hardened as stone, but their eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. Fear, not of the enemy, but of what might come next. This was no ordinary attack. This was a declaration. General Cade, Elara's voice cut through the stillness, her tone controlled but sharp. What's our status on the retaliation? General Cade's voice rumbled, deep and gravelly, as he activated a screen, projecting the images of the Vorkhans ships hovering above the cities. The Vorkhans fleet is massive, but we've identified their weak points. We have the weapons to destroy them, but they've attacked without provocation. We need to be careful, Captain. Elara's fingers drummed lightly on the table, the rhythmic sound echoing like a clock counting down to an inevitable fate. Careful? They bombed our hospitals, General. They destroyed our lifeline, our trust. There is no more room for caution. Cade shifted in his seat, his expression tense. We need to understand why they did it. Why attack our hospitals and not our military sites? There's something more here, Elara. This may not just be war, there's a deeper reason. A reason we don't yet know. Elara's gaze hardened. We don't have time for reasons. They struck first, and we'll strike harder. A chill fell over the room as silence stretched on. The holographic map flickered as it zoomed in on Vorka, the home world of the Vorkhans, a planet swathed in dark clouds, its surface marked by scars of past battles. Captain, another officer, Lieutenant Corin, spoke up, his voice trembling slightly. Are we really ready for this? If we unleash the full force of our weapons, there's no turning back. Once we strike, it's over. For both of us. Elara's eyes narrowed, her face stone cold. Do you think they'll show mercy? They've already shown us what they are capable of. And we've seen enough. She turned her gaze back to the map, her mind already calculating the devastating response. Prepare the fleet. We're going to make them regret this decision. The officers around the table exchanged uneasy glances. The room seemed to close in on them, the tension palpable. Elara Steele had made her decision. There was no room for doubt now. The silence of space was broken only by the hum of the fleet's engines, each ship a dark silhouette against the infinite black. The tension was palpable, the calm before the storm. Elara stood at the helm of the lead warship, her eyes fixed on the holographic display in front of her. A map of the Vorkhans system shimmered in the air, marked with red dots, each one a target. The crew moved silently around her, each one aware of the enormity of the task ahead. The stakes had never been higher. Captain Elara Steele, calm but resolute. Status report. How long until we reach Vorka? Lieutenant Corin, nervously adjusting his controls. We're approaching their orbit now, Captain. It's just like we thought. Vorka's defense system is formidable, but we can breach it. The sound of the ship's engines roared louder as it accelerated, closing in on the Vorkhan home world. The fleet followed in tight formation, each vessel prepared for the moment they would unleash hell upon the planet below. On the main screen, the pale blue and green of Vorka came into focus. A vast planet with swirling clouds of storms and the ominous glow of an atmosphere thick with pollution. It seemed alive, breathing in time with the silence of space. Captain Elara Steele, eyes narrowing as she studies the planet. There it is. Vorka. It's time. The tension was electric, and as the warships closed in on their targets, the sound of the approaching destruction seemed to reverberate in the very air they breathed. The atmosphere was electric, the calm before the storm, the final moment before all hell would break loose. Elara Steele knew that this attack would mark the beginning of the end. But there was a strange feeling creeping over her. Was this really the right choice? Or was she marching into something far darker than she had ever imagined? As the ships aligned for their strike, the cold vacuum of space remained eerily still. No voices. No noise. Only the hum of engines and the grinding inevitability of what was to come. Elara's voice broke through the quiet, sharp, and commanding. Captain Elara Steele, over the intercom. Target the central city. I want a direct hit. Let them know we won't back down. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Each second stretched into eternity, the crew holding their breath. Elara Steele's eyes remained locked on the holographic map, the target flashing brighter with each passing moment. 7, 6, 5. Lieutenant Corin, softly, almost to himself. This is it, we're about to change everything. 4, 3. Captain Elara Steele, grimly. Fire. In a blinding flash of light, the fleet's weapons unleashed their full fury. A wave of destructive energy erupted from the ships, a massive beam that slammed into the surface of Vorka with catastrophic force. The planet trembled, its surface cracking and buckling as the beam tore through it, turning cities into ash and causing the very ground to split open. The fleet continued its path through the emptiness of space, its engines humming with a quiet intensity. The devastation of Vorka lay behind them, but the questions lingered in Elara's mind. What had driven the Vorkhans to attack Earth in such a brutal, unexpected way? Why target hospitals, the sanctuaries of life? As the warships traveled, a soft, mechanical beep echoed through the command center, drawing Elara's attention. Lieutenant Corin stood before a large display, a file now open on the screen. His face was pale, the weight of the discovery heavy in his eyes. Lieutenant Corin, hesitant. Captain, you need to see this. We just intercepted a transmission, it's from one of their ships. It's a message. Elara stepped forward, her gaze narrowing. The transmission was filled with static, but fragments of the message began to come through, clear enough to make sense of. Transmission, a voice, distorted but urgent. We were allies once, betrayed, stolen, humanity. Vorkhans, our planet, our lives, must stop them, the truth, it's buried. The transmission cut off abruptly, the screen flickering to black. The silence in the room was suffocating, broken only by the heavy breathing of the crew. Captain Elara Steele, sharply, her voice low. What was that? What does it mean? Lieutenant Corin, staring at the blank screen, confusion in his voice. I don't know, Captain. But something's not right. The Vorkhans, they are not just attacking us for no reason. They are fighting for something. And we've only seen half of it. Elara's expression hardened. Her mind raced. The Vorkhans weren't just enemies, they were once allies, partners. She felt the weight of this revelation crash down on her. Captain Elara Steele, in a low, almost whispered voice. They were allies. We betrayed them. We took something from them. What did we take? Her fingers moved swiftly across the controls, accessing old files buried in the depths of Earth's military archives. The documents were old, encrypted, and hard to decipher. As she worked, the truth began to slowly surface. Captain Elara Steele, softly, almost to herself. This can't be true. How could we have done this? The archives revealed the startling truth. Earth had once formed an alliance with the Vorkhans. But the relationship had soured when Earth had seized a rare and valuable resource from Vorkhans, substance capable of rapidly healing tissue and regenerating cells, a miracle substance that could save countless lives but was stolen for Earth's own gain. The betrayal was far greater than anyone had known. Narrator, somber tone. The revelation was staggering. Earth, in its hunger for power and resources, had turned its back on an ally, stealing something vital from them. In their eyes, it wasn't just a betrayal, it was the theft of their survival. And now, the Vorkhans had come to take back what was theirs, no matter the cost. Elara stood still, the weight of the truth pressing against her chest. The destruction she had unleashed on Vorkhans, the lives lost, how could she justify it now? Captain Elara Steele, quietly, with resolve. We need to stop this. We need to find out what's really going on. There's more at play here than just war. Lieutenant Corin, tentatively. What do we do now, Captain? They are our enemies, but this isn't just a simple attack. They are fighting for something bigger. Captain Elara Steele, looking out into space, determined. I don't know. But we're going to find out. We owe them that much. And we owe ourselves the truth. The crew exchanged looks of uncertainty, but in that moment, they understood. This was no longer just about victory. It was about redemption. About understanding what had really led to the conflict. And it was a path they had to walk, no matter the cost. The fleet drifted silently through the darkness of space, the aftermath of their devastating attack on Vorkhans lingering like a distant memory. But now, the mission had shifted. The path of vengeance had given way to a much more complex truth. The ships moved closer to the Vorkhans territory, their destination uncertain. The crew felt the shift in the air, the tension palpable. They weren't just preparing for another attack. They were preparing for something much more dangerous, a confrontation with the Vorkhans themselves. Elara stood at the command center, eyes focused on a view of Vorkhans in the distance, now a shadow of its former self, a dying world. Her mind was racing, processing the new truth she had uncovered. How would they face the Vorkhans now? They were no longer just enemies, they were once partners, betrayed, and abandoned by the very people they had trusted. Captain, Lieutenant Corin said, his voice breaking through Elara's thoughts. We've detected a Vorkhans ship, large, heavily armed. It's heading straight for us. Elara's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The Vorkhans were coming to confront them. Prepare for communications, Elara ordered. Let's hear what they have to say. The ship's communication system crackled to life, and a distorted voice came through, heavy with static but unmistakably clear. Vorkhans Commander, cold, fierce. Elara Steele, the time for diplomacy is over. You destroyed our world, killed our people, and for what? Power? Resources? You betrayed us. And now, you will pay the price. Elara's jaw clenched, the weight of her own actions pressing down on her. She had expected anger, but the bitterness in the commander's voice struck deeper than she imagined. There was no forgiveness in it, only a deep, raw fury. Captain Elara Steele, calm, but resolute. I understand your anger, Commander. But what you don't understand is that we didn't know. We didn't realize what we were taking. Earth, we were desperate, We took the resource, yes, but we didn't know the full cost of that action. And now, we're paying the price. But we're not your enemy. The Vorkhans commander's laugh echoed through the transmission, dark and filled with disdain. Vorkhans commander, mocking. You think we don't know the truth now? You think we don't see your lies? You took what was ours. And now you expect us to believe you? The truth has always been clear, Captain, you betrayed us. Your planet betrayed ours. And now, you will feel the consequences of that betrayal. Elara's gaze hardened, but her voice remained steady, her resolve unwavering. Captain Elara Steele, firm. We didn't know the full cost of our actions, but we're willing to make things right. This war doesn't have to end in more destruction. We can still negotiate. We can still end this. Vorkhans commander, coldly. No more words. The time for talk is over. We will not forgive. Prepare to face the consequences of your betrayal. The communication cut off abruptly, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Elara stood motionless, staring at the empty screen, her mind racing. The truth was out in the open now. The Vorkhans saw them as nothing but traitors. There was no room for diplomacy, no chance of forgiveness. The battle would continue, and it would be fought until the bitter end. Lieutenant Corin, softly, but urgently. Captain, they are launching. They are going to attack. Elara turned toward the crew, her face hardening with determination. There was no turning back now. Captain Elara Steele, cold, commanding. Prepare for battle. We'll defend ourselves, but we'll also fight for a chance to make things right. We can't undo the past, but we can still shape the future. The tension in the room reached its peak as the crew began preparing the warships for combat. The Vorkhans were coming, and there was no avoiding the conflict that had now become inevitable. The room was dimly lit, the air heavy with tension. Holographic lights flickered, casting strange shadows across the cold, metallic walls of the alien meeting room. It felt as if time itself had slowed, as though the very atmosphere was holding its breath. Captain Elara Steele stood at the center of the room, surrounded by the towering, imposing figures of the Vorkhans leaders. Their alien forms were unlike anything she had seen before, tall, slender beings, with shimmering, metallic skin that seemed to pulse with energy. Their eyes, glowing faintly with an ethereal light, were unreadable, cold as the void of space itself. The room echoed with a hum, the sound of alien technology swirling in the background, adding an almost hypnotic quality to the atmosphere. Every breath Elara took felt amplified, her heart racing, as she prepared to face the truth she had never expected to hear. We didn't have to come to this, Elara's voice broke the silence, steady but tinged with regret. We were allies once. Let's end this senseless war before it's too late. Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of history and the burden of her choices. But the Vorkhans leader, standing tall and silent, finally spoke, his voice low and resonant, filled with years of anger and loss. Vorkhans leader. Your kind has taken everything from us. The very foundation of our survival. You seized what was sacred to us, what we needed to live. You left us with nothing but memories of what once was. But we will not be destroyed. We will rebuild, and we will fight until the end. The leader's words carried an almost haunting tone, as if every syllable held the echo of 1,000 lost lives, of a civilization fighting to stay alive against the suffocating grasp of death. The room seemed to darken with the weight of their suffering. Elara felt the coldness of his words like a physical blow, but she stood her ground. Her eyes locked onto the alien leader's glowing ones, her expression a mask of determination. She knew this was more than just an alien threat, it was a call for survival, for redemption. Both species, both civilizations, teetered on the edge of annihilation. There was no turning back now. The tension between them crackled, as the leaders of both sides weighed the possibility of peace, knowing the war could end in mutual destruction. Neither of them wanted to be the one to pull the trigger. But time was running out, and every passing moment made the decision more urgent. Elara Steele, with a final, resolute breath. We've been fighting for too long. We have lost too much. I believe there is still a way to save both our worlds. A way to rebuild what was lost. If we do not work together, we will both fall into ruin. There is nothing left to fight for if we destroy each other. The silence stretched on for a few heartbeats. The Vorkhans leader seemed to consider her words, his face unreadable, but there was something in his gaze, a flicker of uncertainty, perhaps. Slowly, he nodded, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Vorkhans leader. Perhaps. Perhaps you are right, Captain. Perhaps it is time for a new path. But we will not forgive the past. We will not forget. But for the future, for the chance of survival, we will listen. And just like that, a fragile thread of hope emerged from the darkness, one that could lead to either peace or further devastation. Elara knew the road ahead would not be easy, but it was a road that could save both their worlds if only they could walk it together. What started as a simple war of survival has now unraveled into a story of betrayal, truth, and the high cost of ambition. Earth, once unaware of the true stakes, now finds itself facing the consequences of its actions. The Vorkhans, once allies, are now enemies driven by anger and desperation, fighting for a future that was stolen from them. And at the center of it all stands Captain Elara Steele, forced to confront the darkest secrets of humanity's past. As the battle reaches its peak, the crew of Elara's warship must grapple with the truth that not only did Earth betray the Vorkhans, but the very survival of both civilizations now hangs in the balance. With the Vorkhans closing in, Elara is faced with an impossible decision: retaliate and risk the end of everything, or reach for peace and hope that there's still time to stop the destruction. But this story is far from over. The truth has come to light, but the repercussions are just beginning. What will happen next? Can the damage ever be undone? Will Elara's quest for redemption be enough to stop the war? These questions remain unanswered, and the fate of both Earth and the Vorkhans still hangs in the balance. If you want to know what happens next, don't miss our next video. Subscribe and join us as we continue this thrilling journey through betrayal, redemption, and the fight for survival. The best is yet to come. Stay tuned for more.